Okay, here we go. Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont-Webre, and today we're very privileged because we're with a colleague from London, Paolo Fiora,
Yep.
who is a member of UCATCH, the European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, and he is part of a group that is out in front of the Houses of Parliament at Westminster every day, carrying out a vigil against transhumanist targeting with direct energy weapons, not only on his group, but on really, if you look at the statistics on every member of the human race, Homo sapiens, because we now can creditably say that 100% of humans are targeted with nanobots and chemtrails, and 100% of humans through the nanobots that they breathe in and jump the blood-brain barrier into the brain have Morgellons and have nanobots in their brain. So it's just the strength of your soul that is protecting you from not becoming a cyborg. And that's the fact. And Paolo is one of a group of stalwarts who's awake, who is in front of the Parliament every day, and who therefore was an eyewitness to the events at Westminster. Was that on, what was the date of that?
It was on last Wednesday. It was March 22nd.
The magical date, 3/22, the satanic holiday.
Yeah, I know about
3/22, Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
All, Moloch, the whole deal.
Yeah.
London Bridge is down. Apparently, London Bridge is down was the code word for the false flag, and just the week before, they had published in all of the newspapers that the code word for the death of Her Majesty the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, who many people say is a walk-in for a reptilian. There's some dispute about that. It was London Bridge is down. So they broadcast that widely to all the reptilians in the world. London Bridge is down, and a week later, there's a false flag in front of Westminster, whose code word is London Bridge is down. Everybody in the awakened community witnesses this and know that it's a false flag. So this is like a chess match, an international fourth, fifth density chess match that we did deconstruct. And Paolo is here as an eyewitness so that we can mutually deconstruct this, and we'll be having a number of shows on this. And it's the purposes of these shows are to raise consciousness, and also so that we can pick apart the plans and how this unconscious artificial intelligence network, satanic network, dark side network is trying to move and fulfill its end game promises, although it's falling apart and trying to save its collective behind or its purposes. Okay, so over to you. Tell us basically what you saw and what you witnessed, and sort of outstanding points that you would like to make. Thank you, Paolo.
Yeah. So basically, there was only two of us on the day because it was raining very heavily all morning. Usually, in previous week there was a lot more people. The week before there was 5 or 6 people. The week before there was 5 people there. But because it has been raining all morning, actually in the morning I watched out the window. I was actually tempted to cancel the whole thing and to call on the phone the people I knew they were interested or committed to. But then I decided, because I know the weather in London can change very rapidly. So I decided, oh, well, I can as well go down there and see what the situation with the weather looks like. So I went down there, and then I was joined by this other Polish TI, which has been is the London resident, called Marcin Poniewicz. Apparently, there is quite a thriving TI scene in Poland. They quite do a lot of things and events, meeting more than in many other countries. Actually, it's quite remarkable. I wouldn't know the specific reason why it's happening in Poland, not for instance in France or Germany, but that is what is happening. And so we were there together, and basically what's happened, the first thing we knew there was something happening or something wrong. It was about 22-3, and we started to have some really sharp shouting, like when there is some, it is quite different from, you get this kind of shouting only when there is some kind of crisis going on. I think there was actually a 10-year the crash, but more than the crash, the first thing we pay attention to, it was actually the really sharp shouting. And then after, everything happened very quickly, because actually I read that actually from the time this person jumped on the pavement with his 4x4 to the time the person was shot down 3 times there was only 80 seconds. So everything happened very quickly. So as soon as you start to adjust your mind to something, and then something else is already happening. So it was all very, very quick. But by then, as soon as we start to have the shouting, then we start noticing all this crowd of people stampeding from Tower Bridge, running in our direction, running down towards the end of the House of Parliament. Then as soon as that happened, we start hearing some sharp shouting, this time not from the other side, not from the side of Westminster Bridge, but just direct behind us, on the other side of the enclosure. So we turn around, and as soon as we turn around, so everything was happening very quickly, we heard 3 gunshots. And then next time we were able to focus our attention on something. The guy was laying on the floor, the attacker face up. He was surrounded by police officers, but you can still have a visual with his head. We were able to see his head. And it was a number of police officers pointing a gun at him and shouting very aggressively at him, even though it was quite apparent that by now the guy was quite incapacitated. And then immediately I focused my attention on his face, on his head, because I was trying to understand he was still conscious. So, and I'm pretty sure his head was moving, his eyes were open, he was looking around like with some sort of detached, I would say detached curiosity, like he was looking around himself with some sort of detached curiosity. People say he was a very cool customer, so, but anyway, he was looking around him, even though he was there on the floor, he was looking around him with yeah. And then at some point I had the feeling, because myself and Marcin were standing by the railing, and we're probably still wearing our placard, the one we wear when we have our visual. I could swear that for a few seconds he's actually focused his attention on us. He was looking at us for a few seconds. And then all this, Marcin was trying to take, was taking a video through the railing. Then he passed it on to me. I posted on my Facebook timeline. I myself, I was taking a video with the air clip camera, which is I always do when we have a visual. But that was not very good footage. I still posted it on Facebook though, and so this we were trying to look, to see what was going on, taking video, and then that lasted maybe 2 minutes. There were a few people by the railing, tourists, other people. It was not only us, there were a few other people, not too many, because most of the people have been moved, they decided to run away, or they were scared for whatever reason. And then the thing happened, some police officers started to run toward us from the other side of the enclosure, very aggressively shouting to move away, which we did immediately. And then we started moving away towards the zebra crossing, and then other officers, this time from the outside of the House of Parliament, they were all the time aggressively tried to herd us away from the area. So we keep moving on until we get to the other end of at the other end of the Parliament Square, where there is the Supreme Court is located, and then we join a crowd of onlookers there, and then immediately start to cordon off immediately the whole area. So at this point, I broadcasted a 20 minutes video on live on Facebook, and you can see the entire square, which by now is completely deserted because by now they made to cordon off the entire square. You can see the front of the House of Parliament, which is a long row of police car, police van, or ambulances that is all coming all the time with light flashing, siren on. And then after a few minutes, we got it was quite dramatic. There was this big red helicopter, which was an air ambulance helicopter, landing just in the middle of Parliament Square, of the Green. That was quite dramatic. It was very noisy because it was a very big helicopter. And then we spent maybe 3/4 of an hour there looking at. There was not very much you can see happening from the distance. You can see, all the ambulances, more coming. And then after some time, more police officers came toward us, the little crowd there, and they moved us down to Victoria Street. Even they were not happening to us. Even there was quite some distance from the House of Parliament, but they still asked us to move on. So we went down Victoria Street, and then we went for a coffee with Martin, and we talked about what we saw, and then at some point we went home later. But so that's my direct experience of what happened.
Right. Now, let me just ask you some questions.
Yeah.
So you actually had a direct line of vision at some point to the person they call Khalid Massoud or Adrian Elms, who was the alleged shooter.
Yeah.
So you actually saw him?
Yeah, we managed to focus on his head for maybe a couple of minutes until the police officer came toward us quite aggressively. Move away from the railing, which we did, But so at least for a couple of minutes, I posted a couple of videos. The best one have been taken by Marcin because he was using his mobile phone. I had this air clip camera, which was not very good at peering through the railing. I think actually it's quite interesting. I can take off the pencil camera, put it close to the railing.
Yeah. Could you send
police officer?
Could you send us that? Could you send us that video, and I could include it in this?
I will send you all of them, the link to all of them. I think there is 4 main ones. 2 fairly shortish video clip taken by Marcin by the railing. Then there is the video clip which taken by the pencil camera, which started with the people stampeding, and then you can see us peering through the railing, and then we can see us being moved away, walking all the way to the other end of Parliament Square. And then I have the 4th one, which is a 20-minute Facebook Live broadcast, where you can see, probably the best one you can see, because I took that with my phone, not with the pencil camera. So it's been watched by maybe 300 people, I think, last time I checked. And you can see the dramatic scene of the air ambulance helicopter landing just in the middle of deserted Parliament Square. Yeah. Oh, I will send you the full link. Absolutely. First thing.
Oh, good. And let me ask you, so how far were you away from Khalid Massoud, the alleged shooter, when you had direct line of sight from him?
It could have been more than 30, 40 yards, because let me explain to you.
30 or 40 yards. Yeah, let me answer that. Yeah. I'm just going to ask you.
The logistic of the outer part.
Yeah. Now, when you saw him, did you see him while he was still driving in the car?
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't see anything on that.
Oh, you didn't see any of that. So when did you see him? Where was he when you saw him?
When we saw him first, he was already on the ground, face up, surrounded by police officers. Because
Yeah. When he was on the ground, was he still alive?
I was paying particular attention to his face. I could swear that all the time we've been watching, which was for a couple of minutes, he was still conscious. Yeah.
Yes. Was he bleeding? Did it appear that he was bleeding?
To be entirely honest, I didn't see any blood, but at the same time, all the rest of his body was surrounded by police officers, some of them pointing a gun. In the beginning, they were shouting quite aggressively, even though he was obviously incapacitated and possibly the shouting. They stopped shouting, but no, I didn't see any blood.
You didn't see any blood. Okay. Did you see any of the other persons personally in your line of sight that were claimed to be killed? Did you see any other persons of the victims, either the police person or any of the tourists that were claimed to be killed personally? Did you witness any of the persons who were claimed to be killed?
Not personally, no, because we never went to have a look at the bridge. By the time we could have done that, the bridge was probably being cordoned off anyway. So, but yeah, so we saw the people stampeding. Actually, we saw one of the first things we noticed was all of these people stampeding away from London Bridge. My personal opinion is that the guy was running with the people. So that's why we didn't see him getting into the entrance, because he was mixed up with all the people. We were focusing on all the people. He probably was in the middle of the crowd. At some point, he took a detour from the crowd and he tried to storm to the House of Parliament. That is the official version, I believe. But I didn't see it.
Yeah. So, but there's an allegation that he stabbed a policeman to death.
Yeah.
Correct. And you were familiar with that policeman?
I think I'm pretty sure when I saw the picture, he came to speak to us maybe a couple of times. One time, even when I was having a vigil on my own in front of Downing Street on another occasion. And so, it was all very friendly, it was all very decent. But, there was like they do often when they come to speak to us, they try to put a bit of pressure on us. They say like, how long you're staying? Are you coming back tomorrow? Are you coming back next week? So, but in a very friendly, nice way, but they always try to put pressure on you, like, they would like you to go away or something, but
Yeah. So do you have the feeling that anybody was killed there, that was actually killed there?
I would probably think that the police officer was killed, because it's not at least the police officer, because it's not something that you can really make up. So
Okay. Okay. No. That's your valid. Yeah. That's your valid observation. Now, there are all sorts of the irregularities. Apparently, this person, Khalid Masood, does not, he is not a religious person and does not fit the normal profile of a jihadist, in the sense that his recreation was to enjoy marathon, and quote, and this is from a witness.
Yeah.
He enjoyed marathon sex sessions with prostitutes while high on drugs, and that's what he did in his spare time. And he visited Saudi Arabia, so he may have been trained by, ISI, the Saudi Arabian intelligence agency, and there apparently are connections between him and people who are connected to MI5 and MI6, possibly part of Operation Gladio. And we'll be posting this in the article that accompanies this. Now, some of the regularities that have been posted are that the main gate on the grounds of the Parliament was left open and nobody was guarding the gate. Did you see that?
Well, you know, there's. I would think that the security there is a bit, from what I witnessed by passing in front many times, I think is maybe because there has not been any attack on the House of Parliament for a very long time. And we're talking about the last time, I think it was the IRA attack. It was a long time ago. So I think, well, you go through, you see the police officers there, you feel that all the situation is quite relaxed. That's what I seem to notice every time I go through. So there's no, and then, you know, but then you sometimes you see all the patrol of police, a couple of police officers with machine gun walking on the outside. But on the door, maybe because it's, you know, there's a lot of tourists coming, taking pictures, so they want to make it quite friendly, tourist friendly. So that on the door, you don't feel a lot of tension or feel like they're expecting anything. Also, I think the security on the door is always felt fairly lax and relaxed. But on the other end, you can see a police officer with machine gun working in the ground behind the enclosure, inside the enclosure. You can see sometimes, occasionally, a couple of police officers with machine gun working up and down in front of Parliament. So, you know, obviously, there are police officers there which are armed, and there are police officers there which are not armed. I think the way this thing works in this country is to be armed, you need to have special training and to belong to some special unit. So most police constables are not armed, but for them to be armed, it's not that they just can pick up a gun. They need to be part of a special armed unit, and they need special training. So it's quite strict with regard to police officer being able to carry arms.
Yeah. Now, some sources say that there were two persons in the vehicle when he drove it down the sidewalk. Did you see that at all?
Not at all, because we didn't see anything. I mean, okay, I watched a lot of footage on the telly in the same evening, the following days, but I didn't have any direct. I was not able to watch what happened in the bridge at all. So I heard of the story. I watched a lot of footage. Also being there, I made my business to go look for information and reading, but I didn't have any direct visual on what happened in the bridge, not at any point.
Right. Now, there was apparently a practice drill, because false flags are built around a practice drill, and then when the drill goes live, that's the false flag, and it's a methodology around which false flags are built. And that was on March 19th, 3 days prior.
Yeah, I know.
Were you there for the practice drill on March 19th? Were you in front of the Parliament buildings that day?
We were not there because actually the thing is that we are not there every day. We are there every Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, every Wednesday.
Because Wednesday line time, when the Parliament is sitting, is Prime Minister question time, and
I see.
It's probably the busiest time for the House of Parliament of the entire week. So you get a lot of you know, household names, politicians coming and going, and we've been giving some of our leisure to quite a number of them, actually, particularly in the beginning, because they had the curiosity to find out what we were about. Now that they know a bit, so that sometimes they don't take the leisure anymore. But yeah, then there's a lot of media going through in and out of the house. So if you're positioned close to the entrance, you get a lot of attention. I think, you know, I was speaking with this fellow TI in London, a guy called David Payne, and is in contact with his MP, which is a Tory MP called Peter Bone. he was talking with his MP, asked him if the MP knew about us, about our vision, which has been going on constantly. I mean, for 6 months at the very least, without never missing any Wednesday. A MP said that, I know about them, and almost every single MP in the House knows about them, us, our video. So
Yeah.
that was quite good, actually.
No, right. Now, the drill that occurred on March 19th was reported as follows.
Yeah.
Hundreds of armed police, this is what happened on March 19th. Hundreds of armed police in speedboats zoomed down the River Thames today as part of a major anti-terrorist drill in London. The drill involves specialist officers clad in black uniforms and toting machine guns, the London Ambulance Service, London Fire Brigade, and the RNLI. Must be Royal something.
Yeah.
So that was on the 19th, and that was the drill that was the setup for the 322 false flag. On 322, Skull and Bones, second chapter of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, the whole bit, ritual child sacrifice, blah, blah, blah. Now, what do you think the purpose of this false flag was? Because at that very moment, you have the first ministers of Scotland getting up and saying, oh, we want a referendum for Scottish independence. You know, it's all the timing around Brexit. You have the Prime Minister of the UK getting ready to activate Article 50 on Brexit. You have a lot of wavering back and forth. You have the House of Lords, who are Eurosceptics, and there's a question of whether they want to throw a spanner in the works and stop Brexit. And with a Westminster false flag, you have the patriotism card, support for Queen and country. So it's like all of a sudden, like with the false flag of 9/11, they started the false war on terror and a whole series of international wars. So now with 322, they have a false terror attack. So everybody's worried about Queen and country. That's the kind of the reptilian brain goes into like fight or flight. And so Brexit becomes the patriotic thing. It knocks down any desire for Scottish independence. Do you think that was it? Maybe?
Yeah, well, about the drills, I didn't witness them in person, but I saw them actually on the telly. So all these black cloud officer, they showed something. They showed something on the telly, which I think it was actually this specific drill. Actually, So I quickly, the interesting thing is, at the time, 20 to 3 on the day, the Scottish Parliament was in Edinburgh, was debating deciding to have a new Scottish referendum. At the way things were going, the Scottish Parliament was going to take the vote because I think they were getting at this point some support from the Green. The SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party, they may secure some support from the Green Party in Scotland, so they had to vote to approve the holding of a new Scottish independence referendum. So that's the way it was going to be decided in the next couple of hours, maybe. When the news of the London attack reached the Scottish Parliament, then they decide to suspend the decision to debate the vote. Now, the question is, did they decide to just to postpone it? Or did they decide to shelve it for the time being? they decide to shelf it for permanently. I spoke with someone yesterday. They told me that this actually has been only postponed. So that's the information I have. So I was talking with another TI on the phone yesterday about this event. He told me that no, it's not been cancelled or indefinitely, or it's been just postponed. Also, some observation you may make is the kind of conversation that the Prime Minister May was having with other European leaders in the building up to the triggering of Article 50. It was becoming increasingly acrimonious. And the political conversation between the different political forces in this country was about the triggering of Article 50 was becoming also increasingly acrimonious. So in a way, now you get all the foreign leaders, falling Prime Minister May, with expressing sympathy, and this kind of event is bound to generate a lot of goodwill in between political forces in this country, between European political leaders. So that's
So this very well may have been the creation of a synthetic terror event in order to create cohesion, diplomatic cohesion at a higher level to counteract the diplomatic fracturing that is taking place because of dislocations due to the Brexit process. Would you think that that's a reasonable conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, it also maybe, if you think of false flag as something used to soften up the population, and when there is some difficult political pass or something, something it may in a general way be used to soften up the population, the political forces to get move the situation in a direction which is more congenial to what they call the terror financial banking elites, basically.
Now, Paolo, since you're there in London and you go, at least once a week to the Westminster area, and you have your ear to the ground, since the Westminster attack, and today is Tuesday, March 28th, since the Westminster attack, is there kind of a visibly more police state feeling to London now than there was prior to the attack? Is there more of a police presence like there was in Paris after that false flag, or in Brussels after their false flag, which I think occurred on 3/22 a year to the date?
Well, I know that they've been fortifying, putting bollards and different around Buckingham Palace, around Windsor Castle. And they've been talking about a larger police presence in the street. I personally, I'm not yet noticing a huge amount of difference. Actually, on Saturday, I was back in Parliament Square because there was this big, mainly I was there. There was this big demonstration there on Saturday. I was there mainly to leaflet because I was not necessarily supporting the demonstration because it was a demonstration against Brexit, and myself, I'm a bit agnostic on Brexit. I think, it seems to me that there may even be a good thing, Brexit, because I was not in any way supporting it, but I was there leafleting literature about covert harassment, gang stalking, electronic harassment, and to be honest with you, the feeling in the square, it was actually fairly relaxed. But if I had to be honest, it has actually made me decide, okay, next Wednesday, which is tomorrow, let's go back to Parliament Square to our normal vigil. But then, then I thought that may be a bit too soon. And then I actually, tomorrow we are going to have a vigil in Trafalgar Square. So I've been quite agonizing a bit. They say, should we go back there too soon? And I felt people may feel, feel like it's, people after all, they feel it's kind of be insensitive and disrespectful, that's other people, the way they may feel, you have also to deal with other people in the street to offer them leaflets. So, you have to take into account, maybe you may have a different opinion about the events, but you also need to take into account the way other people feel about the recent events. So I decided actually tomorrow to have our weekly vigil protest at the same time, which is 11 to 1, but to have it in Trafalgar Square. And there is very a few people who are going to join me. So I decided then what's happening on the following day, on the Thursday, the 30th of March 30th, the Parliament going recess is going to take Easter recess until the 18th of April. So I thought that may be quite a good opportunity for the situation to calm down, and then after the 18th of April we can resume our vigil in the usual place, which is on the right-hand side of the main carriage entrance to the House of Parliament. So
yeah. Now there's a certain irony that you and your colleagues from UCATCH gather there every Wednesday to bring public awareness to the fact of transhumanist targeting with direct energy weapons, because there's some research that says that the alleged shooter in this false flag, who is not a jihadist, he looks like an MI5 or MI6 patsy, was in fact a targeted individual and a mind control victim who was mind controlled into driving down the sidewalk. What are your thoughts about this, that he was just another targeted mind control victim, and rather than being a person of good conscience, he had really lost his way. He had gotten into the dark side, spent all his money on prostitutes and dark stuff, had been a criminal. In fact, his mother, who runs an arts and crafts store, along with his father, who's an honest person, a Christian, are shocked and disowned him, but he's like a lifelong criminal and who has been targeted as a mind control victim and sort of just was steered as a guided missile with directed energy weapons for this. What are your thoughts about this hypothesis?
I think it's certainly possible. I think this thing happens more often than people think, even maybe more often than the target individual think. But the thing is, there's several things to say about this. First is, I'm sure you know about Aaron Alexis in the United States, and I'm sure you know about Myron May. I'm sure you know about Kevin Lord, which is the guy who shot several police officers in Dallas. But all these people were in contact with, Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance, Derek Robinson's previous organization that now is kind of become like PAX International, People Against Covert Torture and Surveillance. So all these people are being in touch, complaining of being targeted. Aaron Alexis, Myron May, Kevin Lord, they're all being in touch with Freedom from Covert Harassment, complaining of it. So I think actually these people committing acts of violence or terrorism, I think quite a number of them are target individuals. But then again, you see this fact that you deal with target individual, and most target individual, they wouldn't never, no matter how violent, aggressive the target becomes, they would never contemplate most of the time engaging in act of violence. So you may think that these people are target individual, but they're in a somewhat different program. You see? So I mean, the target individuals, they have a lot in common with most of the thousands of target individuals all over the world, but it may be induced into a kind of slightly different kind of program, because the one thing you can see, most target individuals are fairly decent, and no matter how, the violent, aggressive the target becomes, they may contemplate different things. They may contemplate relocating. They may contemplate all the time writing letters to their MP, but very rarely most target individuals really contemplate, the possibility of committing an act of violence. So I think it's probably they are target individuals, these people, but in a way they get induced into a slightly different program. But this guy, Khalid Massoud, was born a Christian. I don't know if you know that. He was born a Christian in Kent, in the southeast of England, and his name was, I can't remember exactly, but something like Andrew Russell. He was born a Christian, and he seemed to have a huge amount of anger in him, because basically in 1999 he destroyed the car of a neighbor because over an argument, and then he was jailed for that. And in 2003, again, something similar, he slashed a pub landlord's face with a knife again over an argument. So it seemed to, what you seem to see there is a huge amount of anger. And then apparently he became a Muslim only after getting radicalized in prison, in his second stay in prison. So he was actually became a Muslim in prison. So, but what you see there is a huge amount of anger, and which is, if you are targeted, if you are violently targeted, you become very angry. So that's what we saw with Aaron Alexis and Myron May, Kevin Lord, and but also, there was
even However, in this case, the facts, show that though he became a Muslim in prison, who knows what the mechanism of that was. And when he came out, his handlers and his contacts were MI6. They weren't like Islamic contacts. He was a criminal. He was an MI6 informant, and it looks like a false flag. And the week before the false flag, London Bridge is Down, which was the code word for the event, was released publicly as a secret code word for the Queen's death. So, and it looks like this whole thing was dreamed up by some, intelligence agency all the way up to the Queen. Yeah. Oh, this is how we're going to pump up patriotism as the cement and the kind of the civic motor for Brexit. It just seems to me that that's the logical conclusion.
Yes, there was also some information in the newspaper that last he was living in Birmingham, but before living in Birmingham, he was living in Luton, which is north of London. The neighbors say that he was going out, when he was living in Luton, he was going out almost exclusively at night. He was always wearing black, which is, it's kind of behavior which may be slightly familiar to target individuals when they get pushed by the pressure to engage in some slightly antisocial kind of pattern of behavior. So that may sound quite familiar. Another thing I would like to say, we don't need to assume, if the deep state organize a false flag terror attack, we don't need to assume that the member of the government, they actually know what is going on, because they probably don't. They probably believe the official story themselves. So I mean, if these people are just bureaucrats which are there to implement, to shift, to shuffle paper and stuff. Yeah. They don't have a clue themselves for what is going on most of the time, I think. Wow.
Yeah. Well, we're 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 coming to the end of this particular segment.
Yeah.
Are there any points that you had wanted to bring up that you haven't had the opportunity to mention yet?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think I will be touched quite on everything. I mean, you know, it's I think it's actually, you know, it goes on a lot more than people think. The fact that they brainwash individuals they brainwash target individuals into committing acts of violence, which may further the agenda, you know, of the security state at the deep state. I mean, even when you probably are aware of just before the Brexit referendum, this member of parliament, Joe Cox, was assassinated by this individual. I don't remember his name. It was a very similar scenario, because this person was a completely isolated person, completely cut off from, everyone is spending his time at home with Nazi paraphernalia, Nazi literature. So, you know, and that's another person who may easily be a completely brainwashed person, because shortly before Joe Cox, the MP, was assassinated, the opinion polls were going slightly in the direction of Brexit, right? Then after she was assassinated, the opinion poll for a while, they went in the opposite direction. It was looked like people were going to decide to remain. But then in the end, they decided to leave. But you can see, actually, the assassination of this person, MP Joe Cox, by this individual, is actually meant to swing the opinion poll very much in favor of Remain for a while, even though in the end Remain lost. This person, you know, all we know about this person, you know, it's like screaming like mind control target individual, patsy, you know. It's living completely isolated, collecting Nazi paraphernalia, Nazi literature, and then he decided to kill Joe Cox. He seemed to be, leading the opinion polls in the direction of Remain. It didn't work in the end, but that was a very good example.
Yeah. So which way do you think the Westminster 322 Westminster false flag? Which do you think this is directed toward Remain or toward Leave?
Oh, it's directed to. I think it's directed to helping the Tory government to navigate the triggering of Article 50, because there may be a concern that, the Tory party is the party of the establishment. Mm-hmm. It may be a concern within the establishment that with all this acrimony in between European leaders and between political parties in this country, slowly, it is going to be a long process. And by the end of it, the Tory party is going to get badly damaged by going through all this stuff. And I think there is a concern on the establishment maybe to create a more harmonious kind of environment to conduct this negotiation, so that the Tory party is not going to get so badly damaged. It's going to get damaged by this 2 years process of triggering Article 50, but to shelter a bit the Tory party, which is the
Yeah. I actually watched the counting of the vote and the announcement of the vote the night that the Brexit vote was announced, counted and announced. And I also watched the counting of the Scottish referendum vote, because I come from a Scottish family on my mother's side, the Chisholms. And number one, the voter fraud on the Scottish referendum was palpable and visible and documented. The Scottish referendum would have won had it not been for a palpable conspiracy by the intelligence agencies of Britain to deny Scotland its independence, in my considered opinion, and that was fully documented, number one. Number two, it did appear that there was probable cause evidence that indicated that there may have been voter fraud in the Brexit voter counting that indicated that the voting was much closer than that.
Yeah.
And there could have been voter fraud indicating that the referendum lost and that it may have been manipulated so as to secure both a Trump victory and a Brexit victory and have that tandem kind of victory for Trump in the US and Brexit in England.
Yeah.
In which case the Brexit vote was a result of voter fraud in the UK as well. Very subtle voter fraud, not as blatant as in the Scottish referendum voter fraud. I haven't seen a systematic study of the voter fraud in Brexit. However, there is certainly systematic studies of the false flag of 3/22/2017, which was a false flag in aid of the Article 50 process, which suggests that the Brexit vote itself was the product of voter fraud, since it needs kind of the socially fraudulent energy to sustain itself, since it's a fraudulent social, it's a social movement sustained by manipulatory means. Anyway, that's just a personal observation.
But do you think that the establishment and the deep state, do you think they favor Brexit and the election of Donald Trump? Is something that you think that?
Yeah, I think that there's a split, because Donald Trump is not a truther. He's taken on many masks, one of which is that of a truther as part in order to win votes. He's kind of a double agent of the quote establishment.
Oh yeah, he's one of them, obviously. But do you think that maybe the reason they appear to be so much opposed to him is that they don't fully trust him, or that is because they think they don't fully trust him, even though he's one of them, they don't fully trust him, they think he's a maverick, so they can never be sure what he's going to do next or something? Why?
No. These are just different factions of the same basic value system, but it's essentially anti-democratic and pro-capital.
Yes, I think that the left-right paradigm is disintegrating very fast, because you find, like at the moment, you find some of the left, which is seem to be conflating globalization with international solidarity. Or internationalism. So they seem to be conflating at the moment, just to attack Trump, maybe. They seem to be conflating globalization with international solidarity and internationalism.
Yeah, it's all about petroleum. It's all about against the ecology of the earth. I mean, it's racism. It's just militarism. It's all hard power. It's very low frequency, the whole Trumpism. So. Yeah. And it's manipulation of the truth movement by putting out a lot of disinformation in truth areas, saying that Trump is signing secret orders to release truth stuff, which is fraud. So which is false, but so I think that there are covert parts of the establishment in the UK and in the US, which are co-opting the truth movements and the patriot movements and carrying out the same basic maneuvers in the Brexit and in the Trump movements to co-opt these patriot movements. That's my analysis.
The Donald Trump vis-a-vis of the truth movement is very manipulative. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. It's all fakery.
It's not the truth.
Yeah, it's a false front.
Yeah, it's not going to go very far. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good. I thank you so much for taking out your time. All the best and all power to you and your colleagues at UCatch and your organizations who are there every Wednesday. And people can go to, do you have a website that people can visit and support?
Yeah, I mean, my website is www.altnews.jigsy with jigsy.com.
Yeah. So send it to me, and we'll put it in the article.
All the information about all the things we do in London is also mirror on the PAX website, which is Derek Robinson's new organization after.
Oh, good. Yeah. So send it to us, and all power to what you're doing in at the Parliament, and keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you want to get together again anytime,
sure.
I'm very happy to do that again. And
yeah, maybe we'll do a program just dedicated to the substance of what you're doing and your goals there.
Yeah, that would be great, because people need to know that's the main thing. Yeah.
Very good, Paolo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.